Welcome back. You're with the Lawn Engineer. Today we're going to do a transmission fluid drain and fill on this 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. This has the ZF 9-speed transmission. So this transmission was used in a lot of Chrysler products, but also Honda products. I know it can be a little clunky at times, but I want to make it go as long as possible here. So this has 58,000 miles. This will be the second drain and fill I've done on it. You don't get all the fluid in one of these, I realize, but I think it's the safest way to go. The other thing is, yes, some manufacturers claim this is a sealed transmission and that you should just leave it alone. That's against my personal philosophy. I've been involved with a lot of failure analyses throughout my career and sending bearings into original manufacturers, including SKF, and guess what? Never do they come back and say, oh, that was a bad bearing, or that bearing was at its end of life. It's always lack of lubrication, contamination in the lubrication, things like that. So changing this fluid is the best way to prevent those failures. Also, I would love to replace the filter in this transmission. However, the design of it makes that impossible. You have to remove it, take the torque converter out, and it's buried internally in there. So that, unfortunately, that's not an option. But we'll do a drain and fill. We get about 3.5 quarts of fluid out during that time. So let's get started. All right, the first thing we have to do is jack this thing up. So you can screw this up. You want to make sure you are at the pinch weld. We'll get a close-up of that. But you can also feel a cutout in the plastic here for the head of the jack to go here. So it's hard to screw up, but you need to look for that. This is the structure of this depends on you getting that jack on the pinch weld. Here's a close-up of that pinch weld. You can see here, this is the cutout in the plastic rocker panel, and you can see the actual structure here is two pieces of thicker metal coming together that's welded together. That's what's referred to as the pinch weld. And that overall is just behind the front tire here. Now after we jack it up, we get under the vehicle and we see there's a large kind of fabric pan underneath for aerodynamics, and it does not give us access to the drain plug. Now, if you're doing an oil change, you've got this handy panel here. You can just flop down and it gives you access to the drain plug. But on the transmission, they did not provide that. Obviously, they say you don't need to change the fluid, so they're not gonna put a hatch in there to do that. So what we have to do is pop out a bunch of these bolts. They've got a 10 millimeter socket is what you need. So I've got my handy little impact here, and I'm gonna go around and just zip these guys out. So if you don't have one of these little impacts, I highly recommend it. It makes quick work of this. So I'm gonna get at that. Of course, it's not just hex bolts. We've got 3 of these plastic fasteners you got to pop out the middle and take out, but they're not terrible. All right, you can see I pulled the pan off there, slid it to the back on the floor, and it exposes our transmission here. And our drain plug is right here. So we'll need a hex to get on that and get that draining. Okay, so I'm gonna be draining into this clear container here. Because this is a technically sealed transmission, there is no dipstick. So what you wanna do first is check over your transmission, make sure you're not leaking any fluid. Mine is not. I'm gonna drain into this so that I can measure the exact amount that came out. Then I've got a 8mm hex here that I'm gonna use to take the drain plug out. What I like to do on these so my hand doesn't get all filthy, unscrew it as much as possible, but hold it in there and just pull it out like that. You can see here, here we are draining. All right, we're done draining. Got my container here up on the workbench. I'm gonna let this cool to room temperature because we do have some expansion when this fluid heats up, so I'm going to let this cool. In the meanwhile, I'm going to put the pan back under the van. All right, so I've got the bottom buttoned up there. I put the shroud, the belly pan back on the van. That's probably the hardest part of all of this. I do like the concept of it to help aerodynamics and to help that slipstream go under the van, but it is a pain in the butt to deal with. If you're on a lift, probably no big deal. You can move around and see a lot better. But anyway, I wouldn't blame anybody for cutting a hole in that thing so they could access the drain for the transmission. But anyway, I chose not to do that. Where we're at now here, we've got our fluid. It is cool, it's in our clear container, so what we're gonna do here is come in for a close-up and mark our level. Now on this transmission, there is no dipstick. There is a special tool you can use to check the level after, but as long as we're very precise on this and our transmission does not have any leaks, we can skip that step and just duplicate exactly what was in there. So the reason I've got a clear container here is so that I can mark on the outside the exact fluid level. And how I'm marking it is the bottom of the mark is where the fluid level needs to come up. And I know my workbench is not perfectly level here, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a few different marks just to make absolutely sure that we put the right amount of fluid back in. All right, so I have the marks. I'm gonna drain this, clean it out, put it back in the same spot here, and then fill it up with the new fluid. Good thing I've got a towel under there. This is the waste oil container I use. I put all my transmission fluid oils in there, and I can take it to the local recycling center to get rid of it. So this works out pretty good. Here's the pan as I dumped it out. It actually comes out pretty darn clean. No evidence of metal or anything like that in here, so that's good news. All right, before we get our new fluid measured out there, I'm gonna prep our fill area here just so that new fluid's exposed to the environment as little as possible. Okay, here is our engine compartment. And of course, because this transmission is not necessarily meant to be serviced, there is no dipstick or fill that's easy to access. So if we go between the air box here and the battery here and look down below, we're able to see the shift linkage there, which is that black rubber boot with the wrinkles in it. The fill plug is right below there. So last time I took out the air box completely. That comes with this piece and the battery to access that. I don't think we need to do all of that as if we've got a long funnel in place, but maybe I'm gonna take out this piece and the battery so that we can access it. All right, I've got the battery out. Now we can get a better look at what's going on in here. Our fill plug. We're gonna take this nut off, pop that linkage off, and our fill plug is right under there. We have the retaining nut off, so we're going to pop this shift linkage off. You can see there it's a shaped hole, so you can't put it on the wrong way. We'll just set it off to the side here, and there's our fill plug, so we just have to pop that out and get a funnel spout down in there. All right, an 8mm Allen key works perfectly on that. With some extensions, you're able to get down in there. All right, I've got my funnel set up here. I love this old school funnel with the corrugated metal. Gives a little rigidity when we're pouring here, and it's not so susceptible to tipping over. You can see here we've got that down into our fill hole there, and all that we have left to do is measure out our new fluid and pour it all in there. Now is the time for the big reveal. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers probably noticed the fluid that came out of there had a reddish tint, which the Mopar fluid does not. I said this is my second time doing it. I have done it once before, so what am I? I am using AMSoil Fuel Efficient. Now this is their signature series. I believe they also make a fuel efficient that's kind of a lesser model. Now, I know what you're thinking. You can't use that. You got to use the Mopar. Well, this is one of the first manufacturers I'm aware of that has obtained the Mopar rating for this particular fluid, which is shown on their website. I trust AMSoil exclusively, and so I'm using this product. If you go on their website, there's a very good product selector. You punch in your make, model, vehicle, year, obviously, and they'll tell you which fluids are appropriate for your vehicle. So I'm going with this. You can do whatever you want. This is a screen capture from the AMSoil website showing their signature series fuel efficient synthetic ATF meets Mopar specification 682-18925AB. All right, so now I'm going to open these up, dump them in here, get up to my lines to make sure we've got measured out the exact amount that came out of this transmission. All right, we're right up to our marks there we made, and what do you know? We're just just short of 3.5 quarts, maybe 3.3, something like that. So we're gonna get this thing filled up. All right, that worked out pretty good. We'll just let our funnel drain and then take that out and put it all back together. Now we just have to pop the linkage back on, secure it with this nut. All right, thanks for watching. That wraps up our job for today. We're ready to go. Take this for a test drive. I'm sure everything will be great because we measured that fluid up perfectly. So hope this helps you. Again, that's the way I do it. I'm not saying that's the way you have to do it, but hope you learned a little something. I am the lawn engineer. Consider subscribing. Thanks. Adios.